With Russian leader Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine, the number of fires with unknown causes has increased in Russia. While Putin has lost more than 200,000 soldiers on the front, fires broke out on Russian soil, affecting the course of the war. The flames of the war went beyond the occupied territories and spread to Russian territory. The Kremlin's anxiety is growing every day. Fires in Russia usually occur at night and at important locations that have an impact on the course of the war, such as military bases, assembly areas, administrative buildings, and munition factories. The fact that the fires occur in these areas confirms their connection with the war. Russian authorities start the day with news of a new fire almost every morning. Putin and occupying authorities, who thought that they could achieve victory in a short time in the early days of the war, have now accepted the reality in the war that has been going on for about 15 months. The continuation of the war is harming Russia in every aspect. In recent days, a new one has been added to the unidentified fires in Russia. Moreover, this fire seems to seriously affect the Russian army, which has a problem with weapons and ammunition. Because the fire broke out in a factory producing weapons and missiles for the Russian army. The factory operating in Perm, Russia, was the only factory in Russia producing multi-barrel rocket launcher systems, MLRS. These rocket launcher systems are very important for the Russian invaders, because MLRSs are rocket launcher systems capable of launching long-range missiles. PJSC Motovivka plant in Perm was one of the Russian companies in the European Union sanctions list. This is because the factory was producing for the occupying Russian army. The fire at the PJSC Motovivka plant caused a great panic in Russia. So what was the cause of the fire? How far did the fire spread? What did the authorities say about the fire? Let's examine the details together. We continue to report daily on all the developments in the Russia-Ukraine war. Our teammates, each of whom are experts in their field, prepare the reports by adhering to the principles of accurate and impartial journalism. You can click the Super Thanks button below to support our teammates and our channel. If you are ready, let's start. A Russian oligarch-owned newspaper reported the fire at the PJSC Motovivka plant, citing a statement by the Russian Emergencies Ministry. According to the statement, the fire at the PJSC Motovivka plant broke out around 20 o'clock. Immediately after the fire, teams from the Ministry of Emergency Situations arrived at the scene. The fire had spread over an area of about 10 square meters. The teams were able to extinguish the fire after serious work. After the fire was extinguished, the press office at PJSC Motovivka plant made a statement to a Russian newspaper. The office official said, "Today a fire broke out at the substation on the territory of Enterprise. The fire was quickly brought under control by specialists from the Ministry of Emergency Situations who arrived at the scene." The fire at the PJSC Motovivka plant was more important for the Russian military than fires at factories producing weapons. Because this plant, which produces artillery systems and MLRSs, was the only one in Russia. Apart from this plant, no other factory was producing MLRSs. These weapons are very important for the Russian army. Russian invaders often use these systems to launch missile attacks on Ukrainian territory. Recognizing this fact, the European Union added PJSC Motovivka plant to the sanctions list in December. The fire that broke out at the PJSC Motovivka plant has also become a hot topic on social media. Hundreds of different accounts shared posts about the fire. These posts reach hundreds of thousands of users. The flames and smoke clouds rising to the sky seen in the posts, consisting of videos and photographs, revealed the severity of the fire at the facility. One of these posts belonged to Anton Gerashchenko, an advisor to the Ukrainian Interior Minister. Gerashchenko shared images of the fire on his Twitter account and wrote the following: "A fire in Perm, Russia at PJSC Motovivka plant, which produced artillery systems and MLRSs." The factory fire in the city of Perm brought to mind other fires in Russia since Putin's invasion of Ukraine. The perpetrators and the cause of almost all these fires were unknown. The Russian occupiers declared that Ukrainian troops were responsible for these fires. Ukraine rejected these accusations because the statements of the Russian occupiers were made to hide the reality that has now been clearly revealed. The reality that the Russian occupiers were trying to hide was the anti-occupation Russian organizers. Anti-occupation groups such as the Legion for the Freedom of Russia and the Russian Volunteer Corps say they are fighting for Russian leader Vladimir Putin to stop occupying Ukraine and for Russia to be free. These groups are made up of Russians who oppose the occupation, Russians who do not want to die for Putin's political career and personal interests are fighting for their own country and citizens. It is generally assumed that Russian anti-occupation groups are behind the unidentified fires and assassinations in Russia. The fire that took place in the Russian army factory was on the agenda of writers, war analysts, and experts, as it was on social media. Many authors commented on the fire. Rajan Menon, a European defense expert from the Defense Priorities think tank, was one of those who commented on the fire at the PJSC Modlivka plant. Menon said that the fire fits the pattern of suspicious incidents at Russian military facilities, but there is no evidence that Ukraine is responsible. European defense expert Rajan Menon described the fire at the factory as follows. This is but one of the mysterious fires that have occurred over the past several weeks in Russia. The fire in Perm was followed by the most recent episode, which occurred at an industrial site in the Kistovsky district of Nizhny Novgorod. There has inevitably been speculation about whether these fires are the result of Ukrainian covert operations, especially because some of the fires have occurred at military production facilities, or the work of resistance groups within Russia. I know of no hard evidence that points to or rules out either. Since the day it started to invade Ukraine, Russia has suffered great losses at the front, along with the fires that took place in its own country. Russian leader Vladimir Putin did not take these losses into account when he planned the invasion of Ukraine. The Russian army is being depleted day by day. Here's what the invaders have lost on the front since the beginning of the war. 209,470 military personnel, 3,829 tanks, 7,502 armored combat vehicles, 3,533 artillery systems, 582 reactive spread fire systems, 342 air defense systems, 313 aircraft, 298 helicopters, 6,289 automotive and tank equipment, 18 military ships and boats, 1,132 cruise missiles, 3,165 unmanned aerial vehicles, 475 special machines, 4 operational tactile missile systems. It is unlikely that the Russian army will be able to continue the war with these losses. Indeed, Russian youth do not want to join the army, and the Russian army is having problems procuring and producing weapons and ammunition due to the sanctions imposed by Western and European countries. Russian leader Vladimir Putin and his occupying army are running out every day. What do you think is behind the fires in Russia? Will these fires affect the course of the war? Can Russian leader Vladimir Putin solve the problem of military personnel and ammunition in the army? We are curious about your thoughts. Follow us for more updates.